When we think of romance scammers, we think of young men and women using fake profiles and stolen photos to entice victims with the promises of romance, marriage, and more. While this is partly true, there are also scammers who look for caring men and women online and then paint a picture of a struggling young musician or student who needs your help because they claim to really love you. The picture they paint and the reality of everything are very different. We take a look at a couple of stories that some ladies have shared with us and their encounter with these so called up and coming stars. Story 1. My scammer found me on IG. He shared pictures of a well known Dr. Bikmaz. We all know the Turkish doctor. He swore he was stuck on an ocean rig. His request for money started a month later. I met him January 16th or 18th of 2021. Our online romance went on until around November of 2023, when he finally confessed to being in Nigeria and finally video called me showing his true self. Everything about him was a lie, so he lied continuously for 3 years. When he finally decided to video chat me, I saw his face, and he's a singer now and on the verge of becoming famous. I'm really in shock that he confesses that without me, he would be nothing. I even paid his school or university fees. The reason why I know it's him is because he finally let me see his face. We had an online whirlwind romance that was very convincing. He kept saying he was almost off the rig, that we just needed a few $1,000s. My scammer has uploaded music on all platforms and even dresses very flashy. Everything he has, he's bought with the money I sent him, since I was working at the time. At this time, though, I'm going through financial hardships and am severely depressed since he didn't only lie to me, but to my son, too. This scammer spun a story of being so poor he had no food or water and was thirsty and suffering. I believe he has money now, and I can see by the way he dresses, and now I see him in a better living environment. Right now, he stayed away from me because I told him to sleep with one eye open and that he will not get away with what he did. I just want to be able to share my story. Saddest thing is that me and my son are very brokenhearted because of this. I even felt like I let my son down. Whether he makes it in his line of work or doesn't, I believe that karma truly catches up to us sooner or later. Thank you for letting me share my story. And unfortunately, this happens quite often where scammers will use a fake profile, then they'll confess and they claim to be on the verge of becoming a famous rap star or a famous actor or musician in Nigeria or other places. And they use victims' money to gain success to put themselves through college and more. Story 2. I first met David in late 2023, but I need to back it up first to tell you how I met David because I met him on IG, but he introduced himself to me as Omale, a famous Nigerian rapper, and he said he was an up and coming music star from Nigeria. He told me that he was a student but also trying to break it into the music industry. I was 40 years old at the time and followed a lot of different musicians, but I'd not heard of this artist. He sent me a DM asking if I knew of his music, which I said I had not, and he sent me a couple of audio links to what he said was his music. It wasn't my type of music, but I'm always kind to people who send me links to their music or bands. I always believe in supporting new artists. He told me that he loved my picture and my profile photos and all my photos on IG. My main photo on IG was taken of me while I was on vacation in Rome a couple years ago on a ladies' vacation group. He told me I was beautiful and he wished that he had the courage to talk to me. I told him, well, you are talking to me. And he asked me personal questions like if I was single, what I'm into, do I like how he looks, and he showed me a few pictures of who I thought was himself. I looked at his profile and it had a couple of hundred followers and a bunch of photos of who I thought was him. We chatted briefly the first time and he asked me about my family, my work, things like that. He then told me how difficult it was to break into the music industry in Nigeria. I told him that's a difficult industry worldwide and I wished him the best of luck. It was maybe a couple of weeks later that he messaged me again asking how I was and asked me if I had WhatsApp, as he wanted to add me as a friend on there and make friends from the US on his WhatsApp so he could possibly make connections in the States. I told him I have no connection to the music industry, but we did exchange numbers on WhatsApp. His number was from Nigeria, so I figured he was real. We started to text on WhatsApp here and there, him asking how I was, how my day was, and every other day we'd have chats, and then it turned into an everyday chat to an all the time texting chat. He then started telling me he was having trouble with everyday living, that I wouldn't hear from him for a while because his phone was being shut off, and how hungry he was. He asked me if I would be able to buy him a $100 Apple Card to keep his phone going. He said when he becomes rich and famous, he'll buy me a house. I laughed, but you never know. So I went ahead and bought him the card. He was so thankful and he told me that he was falling in love with me. I kept it all distant, though. He was a young adult, and I was nearly 20 years his senior, as he said he was 24 years old. As our online so called relationship blossomed, he told me how he was so hungry and doing without food. He told me some of his friends sell gift cards to buy food and asked me if I would buy him a couple $100 worth of Steam cards and that he could sell them or trade them for food. I can't imagine being that hungry, so I bought him $200 worth of Steam cards, and he said he sold them to buy food, and he said it's very difficult to pick up wire transfers of money in Nigeria due to all the scammers. He kept sending me his music, and I encouraged him to follow his dreams, but also to stay in school as he said he was going to college to study business. He told me he put his music out to all the big producers, but over time I started to financially support him. I would send him gift cards of Steam, Apple, and Visa Gold reloadable credit cards for him to use and to keep him fed, and help him with a room that he was renting from a relative. I advised him that maybe he's not promoting himself enough online, and that's why he's not getting noticed. So I started to look him up online to see if his music was being promoted anywhere, or if I could somehow help. And that's when I came across Omalay's official page on IG, his channel, and official music videos. I was confused as there was tons of followers. I'm talking about 20, 25,000, and a major label he was signed to. When I messaged this to him, that's when he decided to confess to me that his real name is David, and he was not the singer known as Omalay. He told me he was a student who was 19 years old and he used the singer's photos and music to get things from me. He then confessed he was, quote, in love with me and wanted me to get him to get a visa to the US to come and be with me. Well, I was beyond angry. He then told me that he needed more gift cards to pay for his schooling. Now I know good and well colleges don't accept gift cards as payment for tuition. I told him he was nothing but a liar, and then he sent me who he said was him, his quote, real photos. I then found out he sent photos of a Nigerian model, and that wasn't him either. I ended up blocking him, and he tried to add me again on WhatsApp with a different phone number, sending me yet another set of photos who he said was him. This time I checked them, and the photos were yet of another famous Nigerian actor. I was through with it and angry that I fell for it. I lost around $3,000 between the gift cards, the online prepaid credit cards that I had given him. I let the real singer know on his verified page what was going on, but received no response. To this day, I continue blocking numbers who try and contact me. I know it's him or a friend of his who's trying again with me. Story 3. I met Richard on FB Dating. He said he was a doctor working in Yemen and had lost his wife in 2014 and was left with his 8-year-old daughter to raise on his own. Richard said his daughter stayed with his sister while he was in Yemen working for the UN doing surgery for the injured. He said his contract has him there for 4 more months and then he could come home to Florida. I live in Iowa. He said he was 49 years old and I was 53 and divorced. We ended up chatting on WhatsApp as it was easier to talk there. We started to get to know each other, and I found him to be very handsome. We liked a lot of the same foods, colors, movies, and music. He told me he wanted to be with me when he returned home and to get to know his daughter. Things moved quite quickly, and we got to know each other fast. He then told me that he was having trouble with his bank account and that his bank required him to come to the bank in Florida and show his ID to verify his account as scammers had somehow gotten into it. He said he was unable to pay for his daughter's private school and his sister didn't have the money. He asked me if I could send his sister $4,000 for his daughter's tuition and he would pay me back when he returned home, which was now in 3 months. I went ahead and paid the tuition and wired the money to who I thought was his sister in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, to a Wells Fargo bank account. He then told me that his phone was not loaded with time and asked me for a $500 Steam card to use to load up his phone data. I'd never heard of a Steam card, so I was unsure what it even was, but I bought him the card and gave it to him. Well, I don't know if it was fate or what, but one afternoon I was watching TV and Richard was on my TV. However, it was not Richard, but the caption said Jesse Waters, who was a news reporter for a major news network. I was in shock and took a picture of him on my TV with my phone with his name under the caption, and I sent it to Richard asking him what the heck is going on. That's when Richard confessed to me his real name was Umar, and that he was ashamed to confess to me who he was because he thought I wouldn't like him because he was from Nigeria and a soon to be famous soap actor, and he sent me his photos. He told me that he was scared to tell me the truth because he had to lie because lots of women take advantage of him because they find out he's an up and coming actor. I told him I don't like being lied to, and he told me that he was so sorry and he sent me tons of photos of himself saying he was now being honest and asked if we could try being together. I told him I can't have him lying to me anymore, and he promised me he wouldn't. We started talking again like before. He told me he was trying out for parts in Nigerian movies and would send me photos of himself at the auditions. He then asked me a few times to help him with his phone as he was struggling as an actor but knew he would get his big break soon. I did send him a few iTunes cards here and there, and he talked about coming to visit me soon, but it was difficult to get his visa. And he told me it was $6,000 for the visa application and then another $3,000 for the passport. I told him there's no hurry, we can date online for a while first, but he was unhappy with that response. He then told me he was in love with me, and I was his good luck charm as he landed a big role in a new Nigerian TV show. He sent me photos of himself at the audition where he got the part in the series. When he sent me the photo, though, I noticed in the corner there was a watermark that said Ramsey Nua. And I asked him who Ramsey was, and he said it was the character's name he was playing in the new series and not to worry about it. I decided to check the name in search to see what came up and what type of character he was going to be playing, and that's when I found out the truth. I found all the photos he sent me that he claimed were his audition photos and more. I confronted him, and he confessed to me that he wanted to win my heart and that I would never love him if I knew the real truth, that he's a 21-year-old student from Lagos. He then sent me pictures confessing yet again. I was disgusted at his lies, and by this time I didn't know what to believe. He sent me a few photos and told me that he wants to have me sponsor him as a student to come to my country and then asked me for $5,000 to help him apply for his student visa. I ended up cussing at him in text and blocking him. I didn't know what was the truth anymore, but his confessions were just more lies, more confessions, and yet more lies again. I blocked his number and blocked him from getting in touch with me ever again. He never tried to talk to me again as far as I knew, but I did get a few random friend requests on social media, but I blocked them as well, and they finally stopped. We'd like to thank these ladies for sharing their stories. A lot of times, people will use fake profiles and then they confess, and their confessions are just more lies, and they try to manipulate you to get money, gift cards, and more. At the end of the day, no matter what they confess, what they don't confess, or who they claim to be, never send money and gift cards to people you've met online. A lot of times it's going to be a scam, especially if they confess to you and then continue to lie. If you'd like to share your story, whether you lost money or not to a romance scammer, you can find us scammingscammers at gmail.com. Drop us an inbox with any screenshots, information, share your story, and we can narrate it into a video after we verify the information. We can also be found currently on Facebook, Scamming Cyber Education. Our inbox is there as well, and you can drop your story there, and we're happy to narrate it into a video. Remember, your story may help others. Until next time, stay safe. Don't buy money and gift cards for people you don't know.